Hey up folks, so we have just finished watching Iron Man 3. Do you know what? I really like this. It gets a lot of flack, does Iron Man 3. And I can understand a lot of the criticism, you know, the way that the villains are played out, to be fair. The villains are the weakest part of it, and the way that it's sort of played out with the Mandarin, and obviously the reveal of the Trevor character, and then the fact that Killian, who in the comics I believe was a separate villain in his own right, is then revealed to be the Mandarin. I know that that's not traditionally right with what's in the comics, but I never followed the Iron Man comics too much beforehand, so it didn't really bother me. But I understand the criticism, because if somebody went in and, you know, decided that all of a sudden the Joker was really the Penguin, I'd be brassed off too.
Yeah,
So I get the criticism. I really liked the way that the film sort of flowed, and obviously it was directed by Shane Black, who had a lot to do with the Lethal Weapon films. He helped write them, and I think did he produce them as well? I know he wrote them, but there were parts of this that actually felt a bit like a Lethal Weapon movie, and a bit more like a buddy cop movie, and the interplay between Rhodey and Tony was really good. And I liked the fact, I know it's an Iron Man movie as well, but I liked the fact that they didn't just rely on the costume and the CG and the technology and stuff like that, and a lot of it was Tony finding his feet after the events of Avengers. I really enjoyed the film. It's one that I go back to fairly regularly. I take it over the second Iron Man movie. I enjoyed it. The cast again, fantastic cast. We've got obviously Guy Pearce in there playing Killian, Sir Ben Kingsley playing Trevor, obviously Gwyneth Paltrow's back, Don Cheadle's back as Rhodey, William Sadler plays the President. There's just a whole host of famous faces in it throughout, and a fantastic cameo at the end from Mark Ruffalo, which made me laugh in the cinema, and does every time I watch it. Your first time seeing it, what did you think?
I liked it as well, yeah. Definitely felt like a Lethal Weapon movie, you're not wrong there. Good cast, good story behind it. I like the way it's more Iron Man sort of, as you say, finding his feet and trying to mentally pull himself together after the events of the Avengers movie and everything, yeah. I love the way that his suits keep breaking and falling apart in the film as well.
Yeah, it's almost like sort of like that not so subtle metaphor for how he's feeling mentally in the film, and how he's, you know, when he blows them all up at the end, it's sort of like that. Right, okay, I've come past my hurdle now, and I'm gonna move on.
I'm gonna build some more suits, and this will be a new me kind of thing.
Yeah, it's that starting from, you know, well, that's been and gone, and this is where we're going sort of thing. I right enjoyed it. I don't think there's much more to say on it without rambling, really. Rating, what do you reckon?
I'm going to give it a 7.5.
A 7.5, so you're rating it higher than the original. Ooh.
It's a toll between this one and the original.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, I am going to say 6.5, purely because I just don't know that it tops the original, for me anyway. But I do enjoy it more so than the first sequel that I rated a 6. So I'm going to go 6.5. And we will see you after Thor 2, Thor the Dark World. Now then, folks, we've just watched Thor the Dark World, and it's not the best one, isn't this, to be fair? I'm really glad that when we get to Ragnarok, and we've watched that before, but I'm really glad they changed the direction and the tone a bit with that. In the first one, Kenneth Branagh really captured the whole sort of Norse mythology integrating with, you know, the modern world sort of thing, and balanced the two really well. I suppose while this film does a good job of keeping up the tone that he set, it's just not as well executed. The story's certainly not as compelling. We catch up with Jane and Darcy 2 years after the events of Thor, and obviously the events of Avengers have gone by. Thor's still not made contact with Jane, and she's having a real trouble letting go of the situation. And they obviously come across this energy that leads them to believe something otherworldly's been involved, and of course it's Malekith and the the ether, as it's called, one of the Infinity Stones that's doing that. Jane becomes infected with that, and that brings Thor back into the picture. He takes her off to Asgard for a portion of the movie. Loki, who's been imprisoned for his actions in Avengers, is released from prison to help with the escapade, help with the adventure, as it were, and it sort of goes from there. And the third act set in London, and it's Thor facing off against Malekith the Dark Elf, and it's boring. I really tried to like this film. This is probably the third or fourth time I've seen it. Saw it in the cinemas opening weekend, went with the lads, and we all came out sort of thinking, well, it won't cracking, what it sort of thing. But persevere with these things and all that sort of thing. I watched it a few times again, and my opinion doesn't improve. This is the most bored and sort of uninterested I've felt throughout the entire thing. I'm quite happy that I think we've either got Winter Soldier or Guardians next, but either way, two classic films coming up next.
Winter Soldier next, followed by Guardians.
But, your first time seeing that, what did you think?
More or less everything you've just said, really. I didn't really rate it. I think the only thing that I found good about it was Christopher Eccleston's in it, and he's one of my favourite actors. So.
Yeah, but even though he's a great actor, I didn't think he was really given anything to do with this, and I found his...
I liked the way Loki was living up to his title, the Trickster, definitely. Living up to that and everything. Tom Hiddleston's brilliant as Loki. Yeah, definitely.
Both Tom Hiddleston, Chris Hemsworth, put in fantastic performances as always as Thor and Loki. Their chemistry is one of the film's positive points, one of its strong points. Natalie Portman again does a fantastic job as Jane Foster. I'd heard that there was some sort of disputes and that they weren't. Her and the production team weren't always getting along, and that's why she wasn't in Thor 3. But obviously she makes a cameo through the use of archive footage in Endgame, and he's actually making a return to the series with Thor 4, Love and Thunder, I think it's called. But no, she does really well. See, Stellan Skarsgård comes back as Dr. Selvig again. So the band's there, the whole gang are there, but it's just, I don't know, some of the parts just didn't seem to do it for me, and I found myself mostly bored and uninterested, really.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rate it 4 out of 10. What about you?
I'm gonna give it 4.5.
4.5. Well, there you go. We're gonna move on now to Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Now then, last film of today, because we're both flagging, aren't we? But we have just watched Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the 2014 follow-up to obviously both Avengers and Captain America: The First Avenger. There's not many sequels that are out there that are widely considered to be better than the predecessor, but that is certainly one of them. This takes the character of Captain America and the story and the wider cast of characters and just improves upon them in every way. Again, set post Avengers, the film follows Captain America learning that his old friend Bucky Barnes is still alive and has been brainwashed into becoming an assassin that has basically been alive and doing the bidding of Hydra for the last 70 years. And obviously that gets explored further in later films and sequels as to how that's all sort of come about. But ultimately, it's the work of Zola from the first film. Again, in this film, played by Toby Jones. Anyway, returning characters, we've got Nick Fury, played by Sam Jackson. We've got Scarlett Johansson playing Black Widow as well. We're introduced in this film to the Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie. Fantastic character. Always loved this character in the comics, and was over the moon when they announced that the character was going to be in the film. Sebastian Stan returns as Bucky Barnes this time, obviously assuming the persona of the Winter Soldier. It's a really good adversary for Cap. They're evenly matched, and then once Cap realises who it is that he's up against, he doesn't want to fight, and he wants to appeal to the good nature and the relationship that they had before everything. The plot of the film basically is that Hydra have infiltrated since the Second World War, have infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and have basically operated within S.H.I.E.L.D. secretly, and it's the revelation of that, and then bringing down the the organisation. It involves Cap having to sort of go rogue, and there's only him, Nick Fury, Black Widow, and then the newly enlisted Falcon that can be sort of trusted along the way. Really, really good film. Absolutely fantastic action film. It's the first one directed by the Russo brothers, who obviously go on to do Civil War, Infinity War, and then ultimately Endgame. And they really, really set the scene for that here, and set the bar quite high for themselves as well. What did you think, Well?
More or less everything you've just said, to be honest. Yeah, I thought it was a really good setup for introducing some new characters. Obviously, we're introduced to Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch as well at the end.
Absolutely, that's just a little teaser. What did you think of the main body of the film, though?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, really, really did. It was a really good setup. Bringing in the Falcon. Yeah, really good storyline behind Bucky and how he comes back into it, and the Captain's reaction to how he's been alive and why he's become this assassin kind of thing. So really good development there as well. Yeah, just basically everything you've just said. I really liked it. Yeah,
just a really solid action film. The acting's really good. The story keeps you engaged. Just a decent film. This is definitely one of the better ones. I'm gonna give that an 8 out of 10.
I'm gonna go. I'm 7.5 out of 10.
7.5. Okay. Well, we're calling it a night because we're both absolutely knackered, and what can you do? So tomorrow we'll kick off with Guardians of the Galaxy, and then into Age of Ultron, and then on from there.
Yeah.
But we shall see you after that tomorrow. Cheers. Hey up, so we are back. First film of, is this day 3?
I think so, yeah.
It's a big old marathon, this. We've just watched Guardians of the Galaxy, filmed by James Gunn, starring Zoe Saldana, Chris Pratt, Dave Bautista, Bradley Cooper, and Vin Diesel as Groot. It's a story of a cast of outlaws all coming together to basically try and sell the central MacGuffin, if you like. It's the Infinity Stone, isn't it? And it's encased in this orb. And them all sort of having to reluctantly work together to sell it, and then realising the people they're going to sell it to are, really dangerous people, and ultimately sort of turning over a new leaf and sort of actually beginning to trust and like each other, and ultimately saving the day, becoming the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a really great film. The cast bounce fantastically well off each other. Chris Pratt and Zoe Saldana have real chemistry, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
The sort of comedic relief out of the three other chaps, obviously Vin Diesel and Bradley Cooper, work really well as a duo, as Rocket and Groot, and then we, at the end of the first act of the film, we're introduced to Drax, played by Bautista, and his literal look at everything really brings a humour to the film that's that's sort of really, really welcome, and it doesn't take it too far or anything like that. We get our first glimpse of Thanos, who's going to be the big bad in Endgame, played fantastically by Josh Brolin. Karen Gillan's in there as a supporting character, a supporting villain. Nebula, who again, no spoilers really, but turns to the good side later on.
Yeah.
You can tell even in this she's a conflicted character, which I think is really, really good sort of foreshadowing. James Gunn does a fantastic job with it. Obviously the soundtrack's phenomenal, as we all know. Just love it. Just a great film.
Really good, yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. The cast definitely all bounce off well each other, which is definitely important, especially for a film like this. Chris Pratt, he's brilliant. He plays a really good lead character. That role, again, I know I say it a lot, but that role was definitely made with him in mind, I think.
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Definitely. I think James Gunn was quoted as saying that he wanted Chris Pratt for the role and told him to get in shape. He wasn't in terrible shape anyway, but I think he wasn't as sort of as hench as they wanted him for the role. And James Gunn must have said that he wanted him that badly for the role that he'd even actually superimpose a decent chest on him and stuff like that.
And then you've got Michael Rooker in there as well.
Forgot about Michael Rooker as Yondu, isn't he?
Yeah, he's brilliant. That role, again, definitely him in mind. Definitely with him in mind. Yeah.
Well, pretty much everything that James Gunn has something to do with, Michael Rooker's in there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
He's a frequent collaborator.
It's kind of like Tom Hardy with Christopher Nolan, isn't it?
Yeah, directors have their frequent collaborators, don't they? And but no, it's an absolutely stunning cast. There's so many famous faces to. It's too many to mention. Everybody plays their part perfectly. It's a great example of an ensemble cast working really well. I'm gonna rate that 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8 as well. Definitely, really good film.
Absolutely, this one really reinvigorated my passion for the Marvel franchise. When I saw it after sort of Thor leaving a bit of a dark, Thor leaving it was a bit of a bad taste. Was Thor: The Dark World, and even though Captain America: Winter Soldier was good as well, this one sort of cemented it. Yep, they do know what they're doing. It was just a misstep sort of thing. We've now got the second Avengers movie, which I've actually not seen since the cinema. I remember loving it in the cinema, but just haven't got around to re-watching it. So I'd be interested to re-watch this one because I don't remember all that much about it. But we'll see you after that.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
So, we have just finished watching Avengers Age of Ultron. Well, actually, we finished watching it a little while ago. We've just watched it and AntMan, but we didn't shoot a vlog afterwards because we were eating and just started the next film. So, we've watched Avengers Age of Ultron. The story picks up with the Avengers going after the stolen scepter of Loki, which was compromised, I believe, in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, wasn't it?
I think so.
And them ending up in Sokovia, a European town, basically trying to retrieve it. They retrieve the spear, and then before Thor can take it back to Asgard, Tony asks to take a look at it and wants to infuse some of the power into an AI that he's been working on for a defence system called Ultron. The two things infuse, and obviously all hell breaks loose is basically the plot. Do you know, I really enjoyed this one. It's the first time I've seen it since the cinema. It did actually a triple bill with the first Avengers, Winter Soldier, and then the midnight premiere of Age of Ultron. I went with some lads that I used to work with. It was a great night. And I came out of the cinema at the time thinking it was okay, it was a good follow-up, it was a good film, but didn't actually take the top spot. When we're watching all these in series right now, I actually enjoyed Age of Ultron more than I did the first Avengers. That's possibly because I'm effectively coming back to it with a fresh pair of eyes. I mean, we're 5 years on from it now, and it's the first time that I've seen it since, is it 5, even 6 years on it might be. But yeah, I really, really liked it. There's the usual sort of discord amongst the members, and you've got Tony and Bruce sort of on one side of things, and Iron Man's over there, and then Hawkeye's got his thing going on, and they don't all always agree and see eye to eye, and there's all that sort of going on, and again makes for good tension. We're introduced to Ulysses Klaue, obviously who's the well-known Black Panther villain, so that starts that bit of world building there as well. We're also introduced in this film to the Scarlet Witch and to Vision. We do get a one-time appearance from Quicksilver, Pietro Maximoff. Obviously, anybody who's a fan of the series knows of the fact that there's the licensing issues because he's both in the X-Men and the Avengers in the comics. But obviously, the two film franchises at the time of this being filmed, at least anyway, or the film being filmed, were held with different companies, so they weren't able to use that. So they're not referred to as mutants; they're referred to as miracles, and there's that there. But I think obviously given the success of Days of Future Past and that the introduction of Quicksilver in that timeline of films, I believe the decision was made to sort of basically use the character and then retire the character, so that they didn't have two competing characters going head to head. Obviously they've used Scarlet Witch brilliantly since, and a great introduction to her. What did you think your first time seeing it, as with a lot of these?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a really good storyline on this as well. Definitely, like you said, you've got the different characters and their story arcs. You've got a little thing going on between the Black Widow and Bruce as well. So I liked where that went and the chemistry between those two. Yeah, good character development from Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch and everything. You can see the relationship between them, and not only that, you can see that moment of realisation about what they truly find out is going to happen when they join up with basically the wrong team.
Yeah. They sort of volunteered, don't they, for Hydra initially, and then end up sort of working for Ultron, who is absolutely fantastically played by James Spader. But yeah, that moment where she reads Ultron's mind and sees his grand plan sort of thing, and then there's that swapping of the sides sort of thing, isn't there? Yeah. I think it's just a really good film. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Only time will tell with repeated viewings whether or not I enjoy it, as much sort of going forward. But for now, I think I enjoyed it just as much as the first Avengers, if not a little bit more. I'm gonna rate it 8 out of 10.
I'm gonna rate it a 7.
There you go. So we shall see you in just a moment to do our review for Ant-Man. So we're back just a couple of seconds later, both in this video and in real time. As we said, we're shooting the 2 reviews for the last 2 films back to back. We have just watched Ant-Man. It's Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Corey Stoll, Michael Pena, and what's he called now? Michael Douglas as Hank Pym. But the film revolves around Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, who is a burglar. Just released from San Quentin, wants to start afresh, lead a good life, and basically be a dad for his daughter who needs him. He's inadvertently, without realising it at first, recruited by Hank Pym, who was the former Ant-Man in the 70s and the 80s, to basically become the new Ant-Man, break into Pym's company, which is now being run by Darren Cross, played by Corey Stoll, to steal the latest version of the Ant-Man suit called the Yellow Jacket, because Pym doesn't want the technology widely available, but Cross intends to make it available to the army, to Hydra, anybody with a big enough wallet sort of thing. That's basically the plot. The film plays out as a heist movie, and there's all the interplay with the characters there. Michael Pena plays sort of Ant-Man's sort of sidekick, if you like. He's a fellow crook who's not really redeemed. He's still trying to score, the next job sort of thing. But he's, they obviously they bounce off each other very well, and he's a likable, crook, if there's such a thing. Evangeline Lilly plays Hope Van Dyne, Hank Pym's daughter. She doesn't trust the fact that Scott, Ant-Man's been brought in to take on this particular role, and thinks that she should be the one doing it. And there's all that there. There's also the setup for what happened to the original Wasp, who we later obviously find out is played by Michelle Pfeiffer. And ultimately it's like I say, it just boils down to a bit of heist movie, really. They go after the new suit. There's a few twists, there's a few turns, but they get the suit, and all's well that ends well. And it's a bloody good ride along the way. A great film. It originally started off in development, did this film as an Edgar Wright movie, and things basically, I forget I think it went into production hell, and then when the MCU got involved, I believe it's a chap called Peyton Reed, is it? Peyton Reed took over the directing duties, and it obviously became part of the MCU. Edgar Wright receives his credit as a writer for the film, because it's his film, it's his story that has largely been used for it. Really good film, good mix of action and humour, well acted, and does a nice bit of world building for the larger MCU as we get closer and closer to Endgame. Well, again, your thoughts?
I really liked it. I think this film really does give that point that you don't need to have any weapons or superpowers to be a superhero. In this case, it's an earpiece and mind control events. Really throws that idea out there that you don't need to have some form of super ability or any dangerous weapons.
Yeah, and he obviously controls the ants, doesn't he, with like the sort of the electromagnetic.
That's what I really liked about this. It just throws that point out there.
I really liked for this one. I know I've said it a couple of times. Just the fact that it was a heist movie.
Yeah, definitely as well. Yeah,
it's got superheroes in it. Yeah, it's got that. That aesthetic and that feel that we all sort of know and love, but ultimately is just a heist movie. They're there to steal something, and it doesn't need go any deeper than that. But it perfectly sets up the character of Scott Lang as Ant-Man, and Hank Pym as his mentor. I found it, not in terms of the way the characters interacted, but just the dynamic. I found it quite reminiscent of the old Batman Beyond show with old Bruce Wayne. Showing an unlikely Terry McGinnis, an unlikely successor to be Batman, how to be Batman. I quite like that sort of dynamic, the the old mentor showing the new unlikely hero how to do it. In Mask of Zorro does it as well. There's loads of films that sort of bring the old character back for one last ride sort of thing. Even though Michael Douglas is in all the sequels going forward, that sort of a thing works really well. Have we already rated them?
We've not rated this one, no.
No. Well, I am going to go 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to go 8 as well. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. So we've got the fantastic Civil War next. A great film. Haven't seen this again since the cinema. It was one of our first dates, wasn't it? We went for a meal and to see that film, so it'd be good to rewatch it again. This time we're going to stick a bit of pasta on and have that for tea. But 8 from the pair of us. We shall see you after Civil War. So it's now coming up quarter to 11 on, is it day 3 this?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And we have just finished the absolutely fantastic Captain America Civil War. Do you know what, right off the bat, I think this has been my standout of the marathon. Again, not seen it since the cinema. And again, not seen it since the cinema. And really just absolutely loved every second of it. The story was fantastic. The characters and the interplay, obviously the chemistry is obviously well and truly established between all these characters at this point from the core Avengers team, and it's just a fantastic outing for all those new characters introduced. You know, we've got Black Panther, brilliant character introduced. You loved the Black Panther, didn't you?
He's definitely become my favourite.
No, I absolutely loved the Black Panther movie as well. I'm really looking forward to watching that again. Spider-Man, fantastic introduction of Spidey as well. Just a really, really, really great film. The basic plot, as we all know, is following the events of Avengers Age of Ultron. The government wants to put some sort of rules and boundaries in place to make sure that the Avengers are in check and only acting where the United Nations governments want them to act, and basically not going off of their own accord. Half the Avengers agree to it and think that given everything that's happened, it's a good idea to be in check and have the consent of the leading nations' governments before they act, and the other half don't. So the half that want to comply sort of for the government regulation is led by Iron Man. It's Iron Man, Black Widow, Black Panther, Spider-Man, and Rhodey. And then the rest are led by Captain America, AntMan, Bucky. Bucky's very central to this plot as well. It very much follows on from the Winter Soldier. It's set up that he's actually assassinated the King of Wakanda, and that sort of sets the whole plot sort of in motion, really, doesn't it? But it's obviously revealed that he didn't do it. Captain America's judgment's really clouded in this film.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's one of them where Iron Man definitely is is right, or the lesser of two evils in the situation. It's I suppose it depends how it's written on it. They did the whole thing, which side are you, Team Cap or Team Iron Man, and you could buy the DVD or the Blu-ray in whichever team's colours you were supporting, sort of thing. I very much think that Iron Man was the right one in
definitely, yeah,
in that fight. But it was really, really well done, and absolutely just really sets the scene for obviously when Infinity War comes around. Everybody's sort of gone their separate ways and nobody's really on speaking terms, and just ups the stakes a little bit more. I really just loved it, Laura.
Yeah. Again, what can I say that hasn't been said already? Really good character development. The chemistry is definitely all there between the characters. I think you're absolutely right with Captain America. His judgment is very much clouded in this one. He's only seeing what he thinks is the right thing to do, even if it means going above the law to do it. I'm very much on Iron Man's side. Yeah, we've got a good introduction to Peter Parker, who plays Spider-Man, who is played brilliantly by Tom Holland as well. So the development there starts, and he's introduced to the other characters who at first think, who the hell is this kid? Yeah, but no, really good development there, and again, really good introduction to the Black Panther.
Yeah, both those characters, as we've said, are fantastically introduced. And the interplay between Spider-Man and AntMan when they're battling, and everybody seen Empire Strikes Back, and then they do the
how young is this kid?
yeah, but both of those two providing comic relief for their relevant Avengers group.
I think that's what I like about Spider-Man in this film is he's a bit clueless to everything. He's like still getting used to becoming the person with these abilities and things like that. It's like, whoa, what is happening?
I tell you what is brilliant, the fact that they didn't do Uncle Ben again. That's one thing DC should take note of. Is every time we do Batman, and I bet this new Matt Reeves one that's upcoming will do the same, they always show Bruce's parents getting killed in the alleyway and the gunshot going off and the pearls flying
everywhere and
they even did it. They even did it in Joker and Batman's
well.
But yeah, I do like the fact that they trusted the fact, did Marvel, that we know the story by now, having had two previous Spider-Man franchises and all the various comic iterations that have been and gone.
That we didn't need to know how he becomes Spider-Man.
And they just sort of straight in. And I suppose what happens in Endgame, with obviously Tony ultimately giving his life for the cause and making that sacrifice play, he kind of becomes like a surrogate Uncle Ben. So we kind of see that. Something I read online, somebody done an article on it, and I just found it quite a compelling read. Do you know what stand out for me? This one's getting a 9 out of 10.
I'm going to go 8.
I'm going to go 8.